Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles postgame show. A bit of a surprising postgame show after the Eagles fall 20-14 to the New York Jets on an afternoon in which everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong. Lane Johnson goes down with an injury. They lose a turnover battle 4-0, and still it never really felt like the Eagles were going to lose this game until 3rd and 9, the first play after the 2-minute warning. The Eagles are up 14-12. Jalen Hurts drops back, throws an ugly interception to Jets safety Tony Adams, who returns the ball inside the Eagles' 10-yard line. They score a touchdown after that. And still, you think the Eagles have a chance to maybe go win this game. Down 6 points. This is what the money's for. They've got 2 timeouts, and they just can't get it done. An ugly loss, injury-filled, turnover-filled, and yet, I think one that we will just sort of remember, Jamie, as the day when I guess the Jets got their first ever win over the Eagles, and it took all of these many, many things going wrong. The Eagles probably on balance fairly 5-1, but that doesn't make this feel any better.
No, that was terrible. I think there's a lot to get into. I think it's hard to pinpoint what went so wrong, but I think the guy that comes to mind first here is probably Brian Johnson.
Interesting.
Confused by some of the play calls.
Okay.
In particular, freshest on my memory, the hell you throwing the ball 40, 50 yards deep for when you're on a 4th and 8 with the game on the line?
Well, hard to just. I'm sure that Brian Johnson didn't call in to Jalen Hurts.
That's true.
Throw this ball into triple coverage 40 yards downfield.
You know, Andrew, our producer, pointed out that Goddard was kind of breaking a little bit open there. He had a little bit of bracket coverage on him. But Jalen Hurts, I guess, would be a close second, which is weird because
the first 3 quarters of this game I thought was Jalen Hurts' best game of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the fourth quarter, I mean, I said to you on that interception that was almost a pick 6, he got the happy feet. And I think that was an effect of not trusting his line at all today. So Jalen's decision-making late. Brian Johnson, where was the run? Up 14-3, just kept passing the ball. Those are the 2 that come to mind outside of injury-related excuses.
What did you make of the decision-making in the play calling on that second-to-last drive, the drive that led to the interception from Jalen Hurts? The Jets are using their timeouts before the 2-minute warning. So you've got first down, they run the ball. Jets call timeout. Second down and 9 with about 2:20 left. Jets are out of timeouts. They run the ball there, get stopped. The Jets get it to the 2-minute warning, and then it forces the Eagles into that 3rd and 9, in which they could have run the ball, trusted the defense, punt the ball away, or you sort of put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands. What did you make of that sequence?
Yeah, not ideal. What was the results on the first down play?
Run for 1 yard.
Yeah, it seemed like with a lot of their rushes tonight, especially when they got into the red zone, they were almost losing yards and getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. So to start the drive there with a 1-yard run, kind of like, I don't know. I guess they're expecting, that 4 or 5 yards that they've been accustomed to all year there, which makes everything a lot different. Not great. I wasn't thoroughly impressed with much.
I go back and forth in my mind on that because Jalen Hurts, you just paid him all this money, right? Like he is your franchise quarterback. You got to trust him to make a throw on 3rd and long to win the game. At the same time, I feel like if you're going to run the ball on 1st and 2nd down and just play the clock game, I don't mind running the ball there. Even if you call the predictable Jalen Hurts quarterback draw, and you get a couple yards, and then you can decide what to do. And the Jets are going to get the ball back with like 1:10 left, and their offense had not done anything over their past couple drives. What I actually think more is if you're going to be willing to throw the ball, I kind of like throwing the ball on 2nd down there because that's when the Jets are expecting you to just run the ball. I think maybe you can catch them off guard, even if it's a very safe, that classic, RPR run that they have where Dallas Goedert leaks out. Like, feels like that's the situation for that. I think they put themselves in a tough position. But all of that said, we sort of have not seen too many opportunities for Jalen Hurts to lead that last couple minutes game-winning touchdown drive. He gets the ball, a chance to, have that short memory, and they just go 4 and out. Nothing doing.
Yeah, very unimpressive. It seemed like he didn't have a good sense of the pocket today. Well, early he did.
Yeah, I thought it was his best sense of the pocket all season long until the very end.
Then late, I mean, Jack Driscoll was a turnstile.
Jack Driscoll was a problem.
They're going to be looking for a new right tackle next week, and it's either going to be Tyler Steen or
Fred Johnson.
I would imagine they open that battle up in camp or in practice this week. It seemed like it just got worse for Hurts. Like the interception where his arm got hit, that was actually on him. Like I thought he needed to sense that coming in. It felt like
and on the front side of him too.
Yeah, it just felt like it was getting worse and worse in the second half for him. Like his pocket awareness and presence, and which is strange because he made plays in the first half and even early in this third quarter where it seemed like he was sensing everything behind him and going on around him, and then it just got worse and worse.
I think everybody on offense had a share of the blame in this game, and we will hear from Zack Burman, who's there at MetLife Stadium. We'll hear from him in a little bit. But, I mean, you just go down the roster. Devontae Smith had 2 drops, including one really bad drop
could have been
in the middle of the field.
That could have been a touchdown.
And probably considering how well the defense was playing and what the Jets had on offense, would have been the end of the game at that point.
And it would have helped me win my bet. Thank you, Devontae. That was exactly very rude of you. But, I mean, for such a great receiver that you rarely
weird game for him.
Ever see drop the ball, he dropped one. Kenny Gainwell dropped one.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we can go through it. Like, A.J. Brown doesn't run the post route full. Now, he ends up basically making up for it like a couple plays later, and they score a touchdown, so you can't get on A.J. Brown too much. He caught 7 passes for 131 yards, became the first player in Eagles history to have 4 straight games of over 125 yards receiving. Dallas Goedert had a drop and a terrible, terrible fumble that turned into an interception.
Yeah, what was that? It was like
really
the
bad.
knee. I think the knee of the defender.
He gets hit right as he's catching the ball. On actually what I thought was a good play call from Brian Johnson. They called that screen right in front of the blitz. Jordan Mailata did not have a great game. Landon Dickerson was okay. Sua Opeta did not have a great game. Jack Driscoll was killing the Eagles in this game. Lane Johnson goes down with an ankle injury. Derek Gunn reported that so far, so good on what it looks like negative x-rays so far.
Okay.
But, he didn't return to this game. He's probably going to be out for a little bit, is my imagination.
My worry is that it's the same right ankle.
Sure. And now it means that he's not, and that it means that he's not quite himself the rest of the season, even if he is able to come back.
But he has played with that ankle hurt before.
He knows what he's doing.
And been fine. But you just hate to see the same recurring thing pop up again.
Totally.
There.
And I just thought, in this game, as I was watching the game, it felt through the first 3 quarters like this was sort of a testament to Jalen Hurts, because his power of will and his ability to not have a let-off game was sort of lifting this team, because everybody else was having sort of a let-off. This was a classic letdown game, and a game in which everything was going wrong. Now the defense we can get to, and we will, because the front was outstanding in this game, but they were dealing with a complete training camp preseason squad in the back 7. But Jalen Hurts, then all of a sudden something flips, and I don't know if it's the accumulation of pressure throughout the game, like you were talking about, Jamie, but he just, those last 2-3 drives, he just lost it a little bit. And it's not like there were guys that he was missing. The whole offense just sort of seemed to stutter.
Yeah, he looked like rookie year Jalen Hurts again in that fourth quarter. Like the happy feet, the indecision, throwing into double and triple coverage. I don't know if he was, trying to hero ball his way to victory or what. I'm just talking out loud here. But it was very strange. His decision making, I mean, that near pick 6, I don't understand what he was looking at there. He had room in the pocket to step up into his throw, and he threw off his back feet, and he was kind of pitter-pattering.
And a drive earlier, it's a perfect play where he sees the blitz right in front of him. He knows the hit's coming, and he hits Dallas Goedert on this perfect 3rd and 7, right? Yeah. And that was a huge play in the game at that point.
I think I made the note to myself of wow, that could have been the game.
He's got like he's got control of the game and control of the pocket. And, that goes to just say that 1 or 2 plays can decide a game. Now, in this game, for the Eagles, it was like 1 play, 2 play, 3 play, and there were like 20 plays that if they had just gone one other way, the Eagles probably win this game. But I don't want to make too much out of 2 possessions from Jalen Hurts, but
they were pretty bad.
Do want him to do better at the end of that game. Like that was not great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird one. I'm sure a ton of cliches are going to come out in the post-game press conference of, whatever the hell he goes to in his losses, but he's going to have, the cliches up and going, and he needed a little more help there at times, but late, the decisions that cost him, I think, are mostly on him. Earlier in the game, Devontae, a huge drop. Gainwell, a drop on 3rd down. Dallas Goedert, a couple dumb penalties, all those things. But late, it seemed to be just his decision-making that was the root of the issue there. The chat, we see you guys popping off about Brian Johnson. He calmed some of the fears in the red zone early in the game, and then when you're up 14-3 in the second quarter and you can't produce a point in the second half and you don't really run the ball, I understand both their cornerbacks are out, but I do think he's going to be in the crosshairs for this one. I mean, I think it's Jalen and Brian Johnson, unfortunately, which is weird because we talked about Jalen. He looked really good for 60% of the game, 65% of the game, and then it just all fell apart.
Yeah, and I look forward to being able to watch, the full picture on the film this week to see if there were guys open, what exactly Brian Johnson was calling. I don't really fault him for getting away from the run too much in this game because, DeAndre Swift had 10 carries for 18 yards. It's not like there was a lot there in the running game. And I know that there's something to be said for the more you do it, maybe something pops. But I think the way that the Jets were playing them, I think they were winning those matchups up front. They've got those 2 great linebackers.
Their linebackers were nasty today.
I don't think they were missing too much. Gainwell, 2 carries for 13 yards. So the running backs combined 12 carries for 31.
Yeah, maybe it's just one of those things where like Jack Driscoll feels more comfortable run blocking as opposed to pass protection. I mean, who knows? He needed some help today, and that's something.
And that's maybe something that I look forward to watching back.
Yeah, maybe you bring in Jack Stahl.
They certainly called empty a lot, which sometimes is to the benefit of when you don't have great pass protection because the ball's got to come out quickly. Yeah. You can identify where the rush is coming from, but.
Who's the name I heard a lot today? Bryce Hall, not Brees Hall. Bryce
and Bryce Huff.
Huff, that's
Bryce
what
Huff,
it is.
Yes.
Bryce Huff was cooking Jack Driscoll's ass.
He was, and Jermaine Johnson as well.
Yeah, those linebackers for the Jets are pretty damn good. They had a monster day. The turnovers, the Swift one and the Goddard one.
The Goddard one, fluky play,
very fluky. Swift. You got to protect. You got to protect the ball a little bit better there. I mean, you're just not going to win many games in the NFL when your turnover differential is what
4-0, right?
4-0.
And so that's the story of this game, right? Is that if not for the 4 turnovers, the Eagles probably win this game, and it probably says a lot about them that despite missing all of these guys, they could have or should have won this game.
Well, if you're not playing Zach Wilson, it's probably not even. You're probably not even in the game.
Probably so,
because he sucks.
Yeah, he's awful.
He's really bad, and he cost me my bet.
And they're going to be talking about Zach Wilson looking better. You got to be kidding me. The guy's
he stinks.
Some of the balls
really bad. I thought he was throwing away, but I don't think he was intending to.
Yeah,
I think he was just trying to make plays, but they look like throwaways.
Yeah. Now
so if you're playing,
you did lose your bet.
I did. I lose.
We both lost both.
Yeah.
You went. Zach Wilson finished with 186. You needed 200.
Yeah.
And then what else did you need?
Devontae Smith. Blew it for me on the drop.
Yeah, he finishes with 5 for 44. Good thing you didn't bet it.
Yeah, good solidarity by you.
Lamine Zaccheaus over 10.5. He finished with 1 for 5, but he had another one that was called back for penalty. And then I had Jalen Hurts throwing 2 touchdown passes. He only threw 1. But that is a way of telling you that you too can lose money, like us, by using DraftKings Sportsbook. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets, and DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code PHLY. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet 5 on the NFL. That's code PHLY, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. And the only way to bounce back from losing money is to just keep going and win some money.
Well, I mean, I think,
double down.
I would say the Bills should be easy money tonight, but the biggest two exposures in Vegas today were the 49ers and the Eagles, and they both lost. So it might just be one of those weekends where weird shit happens, and maybe the Giants go up there and cover.
And maybe that's what Nick Sirianni will tell the guys in Milwaukee. Guys, it's just one of those weekends where weird shit happens.
Yeah, I mean, 6-0. I feel like 6-0, usually there's still somebody hanging. For nobody to be 6-0 this year is...
They both go down, yeah.
Yeah, probably a little weird, but not too weird.
Let me cover us here on the disclaimer. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles in Louisiana, 21 and older, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football. Terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
So MBDBDF in the chat says, okay. Andrew, if you could just scroll up real quick there. And I kind of agree with
Too
this.
many letters. Let's make it a word.
It's a lot of letters. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe initials of some sort. You simply cannot hand the ball off 14 times and throw it 45 while never trailing into the 2-minute warning. Simply cannot happen. That's kind of how I feel. Like, I understand what your point about Swift, not really killing them. And
I don't know. I mean, they had that drive.
I just feel like you
in
needed
the fourth quarter after the Jets punted deep, and the drive is killed because on the first down they hand it off to DeAndre Swift and he loses a yard.
Yeah,
like I think there were some drive killing handoffs.
I don't know. That's fair, but that balance is just. I'm far from I think modern NFL is like 65-35 pass to run. I'm not like a 50-50 guy by any means, but to be 45-14 when you had the lead for 24-36, 46 minutes of the game it doesn't sit well in my stomach. So I just think I don't know, something could have been done different. Maybe
it's one of those ones where in the macro,
right.
You look at it and you're like, okay, this is a little bit too imbalanced. In the actual flow of the game, there were not really times where I was like, oh, you got to pound the rock here. But, it is their job to keep the big picture in mind.
Sure.
And not just.
And I'm sure Sirianni's going to be asked about it after the game.
Sure.
I'm sure somebody's going to ask him. And, well, I'll be curious his answer. Now, let me ask you something, because we saw it there on one of the final plays. AJ with a little now I know they're best friends and there's competitiveness on the field. Looked like he kind of screamed at Hurts there for
overthrew him. Yeah, it was a bad throw.
Throwing it a little high on him.
You know what's funny? There was the early sequence when Jalen Hurts throws the ball deep for AJ Brown and AJ sort of slows up, and the read there is that's not really a route that he's expecting the ball. He's really running it to clear out the defense, and then a few plays later, AJ Brown comes back, and this is like pure projection, and I was just in my head, but it felt to me like the throw to A.J. Brown was sort of like a passive-aggressive Jalen Hurts. Like, listen, we're all watching the tape. There's a lot of times when A.J. Brown, as amazing as he is, and he might be the very best player on the whole team, he loafs sometimes. Like, he doesn't run every route 100%. And so, in a way, it's like Jalen Hurts being like, okay, run. Because if you run, I can find you. And then the response is like, A.J. Brown catches this ball over the middle of the field, runs through the entire team, almost scores a touchdown, and he's... And like the read of it is, don't tell me when to run. I run when I need to run. Like, I'm the best player on the team. And so it's the same thing of, early in the season when he's upset on the sideline, like he knows he's the best player on the team. And so if AJ Brown or if Jalen Hurts is going to overthrow him with the game on the line right there, he probably thinks he can beat that guy and turn the corner. And he's competitive. Of course
probably
he's upset.
can. Yeah. And there was that deep play earlier in the game where it seemed like AJ didn't expect the ball to come to him.
Right.
And I actually thought Jalen put the ball on the money.
It was a great throw.
But AJ, and it was actually one of the few things the analysts did correctly today. And we can rail on them because people always enjoy that.
Broadcast. Yeah.
But AJ kind of took like 5 yards off, and then he realized Jalen was coming to him and ended up, a foot short on the throw. It's probably just, best friends being highly competitive, but it
Sure.
did seemed a little off today, which is weird because he had such a great game. I think that's weird.
Right.
I kind of think
That's
it's
like the AJ Brown experience.
Yeah.
He's maybe the best player on the team, but he tries like 90% of the time.
Yeah, and
which is fine.
I understand competitiveness and high emotions in the field. I think showing up your quarterback on the field's a bad look.
Yeah, I don't
think it's like going to be something that carries over into the locker room and they're dealing with in practice and all that. I just, it's just kind of one of those like, oh, really? Can't you save that for the sideline or the locker room or something?
So just to run through the injuries here for the Eagles, and this may not be exhaustive, but Lane Johnson leaves and does not return with an ankle injury. Eli Ricks left and did not return with a knee injury, and Reed Blankenship left and did not return with a rib injury. Also leaving the game and coming back throughout the course of the game were Dallas Goedert, Bradley Roby, Milton Williams. I think there's one more that I'm missing, but on defense, which we can get to in a bit, it was a total mishmash of guys, especially on the back seven. But I guess we should finish up on the offense just to run through it. AJ had 7 catches for 131. Devontae 5 for 44. Dallas Goedert 5 for 42. DeAndre Swift did have 8 catches for 40 yards and a really impressive touchdown catch that he had, breaking a tackle near the goal line.
Yeah.
Boston Scott 1 for 14. Zacchaeus and Gainwell with catches as well. They were up 14-3 in this game. They got shut out in the second half. And
That's inexcusable.
It's a good Jets defense. I thought the Jets played well in this game. Their rush was winning. As I said, those linebackers were good, but it was not dissimilar to the state of the Eagles secondary, where the Jets had 2 backups at corner. Craig James was playing for them on the outside. They needed to do more.
Yeah, Jake Elliott, Chicken Little was off,
and that's part of why I don't begrudge the heavy pass, right? Because that's where their mismatches should have been.
Yeah, it should have been. I certainly understand why it was pass heavy, but it just seems way now in hindsight, because you're right. Like in game, I didn't find myself going like, all right, get to the ground. But now that it like kind of digested it a half hour later, I'm like, man, 45-14 when you had like case of the drops all over the place today. AJ was helping Jalen out, but nobody else really was.
Yeah.
And the offensive line, they gotta try something else at right tackle this week.
Yeah, I'm curious because sometimes they'll look and see how a guy plays and they'll just pull him, like what they did with Mario Goodrich after week 2. He was thrown in, he didn't play well, he wasn't even active the next game. Sometimes they think, okay, maybe with a full week of practice, it's going to be a little bit better. Now, Jack Driscoll is in his 4th year. He has played right tackle before. This should not have been the case of like this guy is just thrown into the mix and he doesn't know what he's doing. Like he's there because he's supposed to know what he's doing and he's supposed to be reliable. If he was really that overwhelmed, I would not be shocked if they went to Tyler Steen or Fred Johnson. And frankly, with Tyler Steen, you're talking about a 3rd-round pick. You've now lost 2 starters. I feel like you want to see him in the lineup at some point.
Yeah. I think we kind of know what Jack Driscoll is at right tackle. I think he's at best serviceable. I don't want to put too much on him, but
they could get really wild, and they could put Mailata at right tackle because he's played on the right side before, and Steen at left tackle because that's his more natural position.
But you remember Mailata's comments of it's like learning to write with your other hand.
Yes.
Did he go with the wipe also?
He went with the wipe.
Oh, he was the wipe.
He's the wiper.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is he's relaying Stoutland's. Like, you can get the job done, but it doesn't feel comfortable.
I wouldn't feel very confident in my left-handed wiping ability.
But you're a bidet man.
That is true.
So
best $45 anybody can spend.
There you go.
I'll be curious to see what they do with that.
And it might maybe it'll be Fred Johnson. Next week is an interesting game against the Dolphins. I think we're all very curious to see how that goes. The Kelly Green game. I don't know. I kind of want to see, because it's the Kelly Green game, I kind of want to see the monstrous Fred Johnson out there at right tackle rocking like the biggest Kelly Green jersey there's ever been.
Yeah, Lane Johnson, I looked it up because, man, the difference when the Eagles have him and don't have him
it's crazy.
Is insane. So this was prior to the game. The Eagles are 13-22 in games that Lane Johnson doesn't participate in. They're 79-47-1 with him. So they're now 13-23 without him because, I mean, he was lost, midway through the first quarter? Was that the first drive?
I think, it might have been early second.
Might have been the second drive.
It was certainly early.
So I'll count that as
because they had a very long first drive, remember?
Yeah, they had, and that's the thing. Like the Lane Johnson effect, it seemed to just kind of trickle down throughout the offensive line. Like nobody seemed to do well after that. I saw your boy Soa Opeta a couple times trying to, hit Kelsey on the side, but he's got Driscoll to worry about on his other side. Like it seemed to be a real effect throughout the line that they all just kind of went to ass.
Jake Elliott misses a chip shot.
That stadium's just got bad vibes, doesn't it?
I guess it does. Yeah. I mean, well, the field is really bad.
The field is horrible. And, you heard me bitch and moan about it. I'm very much of the belief that every stadium in the NFL, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, should be grass. Like, these artificial turf fields are just...
I agree with that.
They're just athlete killers. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers play, like, the 4 plays into the game this year. That's just a weird... How many non-contact, Goddard limped off, Garrett Wilson limped off, a couple linemen limped off, the entire Eagles secondary. Now they have to go get some safeties.
I mean, they literally do just to fill out the roster.
Yeah, like they're gonna have to go grab somebody off the street. That field, this is the hypocrisy of the NFL. Like, you're gonna worry about the tush push and the injury that comes from it because the Giants don't practice it and try it in a game, but then you're gonna have a field that just rips people up.
One might argue that a classy organization would have grass.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. Definitely classy organizations have grass.
All right, let's talk about the defense because the defense, I thought, was really good in this game. Now, they gave up 20 points, but 4 field goals, and there were a bunch of times in this game where the offense put them in a bad spot, and they bounced back right away and saved things. And it was sort of the perfect example of why the Eagles roster is built the way that it's built, because you've got in the secondary, I mean, there was a point in this game when the secondary was Terrell Edmonds, Mekhi Garner, called up from the practice squad, a cornerback by trade, playing safety, James Bradbury on the outside, Mario Goodrich at nickel after having lost his job and Bradley Roby goes off, and then Josh Jobe on the outside, who had already been overtaken by Eli Ricks in the game until Ricks left. Like, imagine that secondary going up against the Dolphins receivers next weekend and see how that goes. But despite all of that, and despite it being Nakobe Dean and Zach Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow sort of switching between the 3 of them for 2 spots at linebacker, the Jets couldn't do anything, not just because they had Zach Wilson at quarterback, but because all of the resources poured into that defensive line that was still missing Jalen Carter had Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick and Milton Williams and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham dominating the game to the point where the Jets just couldn't really do anything.
Yeah, it was like halfway through the fourth quarter, I looked at you and Andrew, and I was like, so Andrew, and I was fully expecting a win still at this point. I was like, the thumbnail for our YouTube can either be A.J. Brown or Hassan Reddick, because Reddick had a monster game. It really seems like the cast impacted him in a pretty big way.
For Hassan Reddick in this game.
Yeah, but the defensive line did look great, and Jalen Carter, Milton Williams had a good game. So Jalen Carter, obviously, you miss him, but the defensive line, you can't put any blame on. You can't.
And I thought Jordan Davis bounced back and was very good in this game.
Yeah, Jordan Davis had one. Brandon Graham had one. Like, they were getting to him. So I thought James Bradbury played a really good defense on Garrett Wilson. I thought it was weird that the Jets tried to run like the post-up play twice in the end zone against James Bradbury, who's bigger and longer armed. Just seemed kind of foolish. But
very weird comment from Mark Sanchez about James Bradbury being an NFC South cornerback.
Yeah, what the hell was that? He's played guys like Mike Evans and
as if his body was molded by the fact that that's the division that he was in.
He was born in the darkness, molded by it.
Not just describing the guy, but that's the division he came from. So he turned into a slower.
He obviously plays a certain style of defense. He's an NFC South guy.
But yeah, I mean, so they shut down the Jets' run game, and that's what the Jets want to do. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook combined for 15 carries for 51 yards, so not very good.
No.
Zach Wilson, 19 of 33, which is a better completion percentage than I would have expected, but a lot of those were very short, for 186 yards, a quarterback rating of 73.5, but he didn't turn the ball over, and I think that was a huge part of
that was
this
a
game.
Story of the game. Yeah, 4-0.
Garrett Wilson goes 8 for 90, but again, like the defense at points in this game was saving the offense from some of all of those self-inflicted wounds. And so, like, I think if we're going to put some blame on Brian Johnson, I think I got to give a little bit of credit to Sean Desai for all of the injuries that they have incurred in the secondary. We saw a lot of different front mechanics in this game too, where there were some snaps of 6 defensive linemen with 4 defensive tackles on the field. We saw some of that 5-1-5. We saw them just like rotating guys in the secondary. They were it was like they were treating Zach Wilson like the JV quarterback that he is, and just throwing different looks at him because they know that he can't see the field. But it was, I thought, an impressive game from Desai's group.
Yeah, the more and more we talk this out, and like you're right, the defense was pretty great for the most part today. How the hell did they lose this game?
I mean, 4 turnovers.
I mean, that's really what it all
Lane Johnson
boiled down to. I had no doubt that the defense was going to get stops most of the time. The Jets offense got the ball back. It all came down to those turnovers. It was, how did they lose that game?
You know what? I never thought they were going to lose this game.
Either did I.
Really, until the right before the 4th down play. Like even after the interception, I kind of thought they were going to just go down and score a touchdown.
Yeah, because it's the Jets.
And it's just that's my own blind spot. That's my fault. But
and the announcing crew, just to back to them for a second, when the Jets scored and Breece Hall got that touchdown, the crew acted like the game was over. Like,
well, yeah, but then Sanchez was getting on them for scoring, like that they should have realized that they shouldn't have scored.
But if you're the Jets, like, you just kind of need a lead. Like, I understand the right plays to go down to 1 and take another 45 seconds off the clock. But if you're the Jets, like, if I'm Breece Hall, I'm going, nah, man, I'm on the Jets. We're getting the points here. Like, we just need to be up on the scoreboard for once. The announcing crew was very strange.
Yeah, I think it was.
They acted like tough. The Jets just lost the game.
But also, like, the replay scene was tough. There was a ton of time when the replays were not showing us what we needed to show. The start of the game, we had to just watch the 49ers game.
Yeah.
What was that? On 75% of the screen with the sound, even though, like, everybody in the world at this point is able to watch whatever game they want to watch. Like,
yeah.
Let us watch the game we're watching, please. Here's my question for you, Jamie. If we try to, like, divorce the game itself and, like, why did they lose this game? How did they lose this game? And think of it more from the big picture perspective. What from this game concerns you long term?
Jalen's decision making in the 4th quarter. I thought we saw a fall off a cliff regression there in 1 quarter. Like, I don't know how he didn't see the pressure coming on that one. That was in front of his face. It was on his right side. That happy foot not stepping into his throw. Like, this is a guy who's been stepping into defenders, hitting them all year. And on that read, he had a pocket in front of him a little bit, could have stepped into the throw and threw it into like double and triple coverage. And then that last play of the game where you just need a 1st down. Yeah, the call might not have been deep to Devontae there, but it was certainly an option. And he seemed to be looking for that more than he was looking for anything else. So, the offensive line, that doesn't concern me because I think that'll get addressed, whether it's somebody new or Lane will be back. I don't have concerns there. Defensively, there was no real concerns. Granted, you don't want to let up. But what's the defense supposed to do on that final play? I thought they made the right play, letting them score.
Right.
Nothing really there. I mean, I think it just comes down to Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts and what's going on there. Even though they were on the verge of being 6-0, I think everybody agrees we haven't really seen their consistent best football.
It feels
yet.
like 5-1 is the record they deserve.
Yeah, and possibly 5-2 next week because the Dolphins are going to be tough. I don't know. It just seems like that relationship is working it out.
And I think it's probably fair to say that it was always going to take a little bit of time.
Sure.
Right? Like, this is a new coordinator, even though he's been in the building. And even though everybody knows that he's known Jalen Hurts since he was 6 years old or whatever, that doesn't really necessarily translate to the field.
No.
I do want to see like what the film says, but in terms of big picture concerns, I mean, it is sort of the injuries, and I think this was a game in which if you were of the opinion that like certain things were bound to regress for the Eagles this year after last year, you would have said one of them would be turnovers, and boy, did they regress hard in this game, going 4-0, and then the other would have been injuries, and they lost like half the team in this game. So obviously the Lane Johnson one is the most concerning.
Yeah.
If it's going to be a significant period of time, they need to have a better long-term plan. The Reed Blankenship one is tough because he was already dealing with rib injuries before. That's what that made him miss that second game.
And you just don't really have that many safeties.
And they just put Justin Evans on injured reserve.
Sidney Brown, I guess, should be back next week.
Better get back. He has missed the last 2 games. He was listed as questionable heading into this game. Was inactive. If you missed that in the pregame show, they need him back. And then it's either going to be Terrell Edmonds or they're going to just turn Mekhi Garner into a safety full time. You know, you've lost Avonte Maddox for the season, so there's your break glass in case of emergency safety option. I think that's probably the position that if we are thinking of trade acquisitions, the place to look, because it's a position we know that they care about. And it's a position that is in tough shape right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Howie's kind of working the calls a little bit early this week just to see. You know, I know there was a report 2 weeks ago that anybody on the Broncos defense can be
Justin
had.
Simmons is the guy who seems like the right type of player if you're going to make a big acquisition.
And Zach's mentioned
Jeremy Chin
before. I would imagine he's going to make some calls this week because, you know, I see some people in the chat that are down bad. And yeah, that this game stings. There's no way to coat that one. But it certainly hasn't like completely altered my expectations for the season or anything. I think you can address the safety. I don't think Jalen is terrible now all of a sudden. I think he had a terrible quarter of football.
It would have it would have been really nice for them to have played this terrible game
and won
and still won and be 6-0 while the Niners lose, and you have gotten through this, what is supposed to be the easy part of the schedule. You've gotten through it unscathed. Now you're staring down. It goes Dolphins and then Commanders, and then it's that really brutal gauntlet of Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys again after the bye. And if you had been able to fully stack those wins and see that San Francisco had lost, and maybe you could still, see the picture to getting home field advantage. Obviously, that is still within their control. But to have played like one really good game in 6 games and be 6-0, that would have been nice.
Yeah. So just gut. What do you think? Because you just reeled it off. It goes Dolphins, Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, Niners. And the Commanders games are always tough, as we know. That's a tough 6-game stretch there. What is your gut?
Yeah, it's a gauntlet.
What does your gut say? I mean, are they 3-3?
Right now, I think they're going to lose next week. I think they're going to beat the Commanders. I think they're going to beat the Cowboys. I think they're going to lose to the Chiefs. I think they're going to lose to the Bills. I think they're going to beat the Niners.
So that's 3-3.
Yeah, and then I think they'll lose to the Cowboys in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look,
just off the top of my head.
Yeah,
that would be that put them at 8-5.
8-5. Okay, I kind of agree with that. I think they're going to be 3-3 after that stretch. But all of a sudden, that becomes 4 losses of your last, 7 or 8, and you got to snap out of it at some point. The NFL season is hard. It's long. It's a war of attrition. All that stuff.
I know, that's right.
They got some heavy hitters coming up here, and it would have been real nice to pad that record with a nice Jets W.
I mean, it is funny to think about, like, what are Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle thinking as they line up across from Josh Jobe and Mario Goodrich.
So where does Slay stand?
Now, Slay, I imagine, without knowing anything, but I think that Slay is probably back next week. And then Jalen Carter, hopefully you get back as well. Obviously, those would be huge ahead of that matchup.
Yeah, you're going to need all hands on deck for these games upcoming for sure. The Dolphins are very fast, and they're going to pose a problem. And the Kelly Green game is going to be certainly up in the air. That's for sure.
Let us know if you have any questions in the chat that you would like to be addressed. But
Santiago says, AJ is wearing thin on me. He's a sourpuss. Well, he just became the first Eagle ever to have 4 straight games over 125 yards. That should help counterbalance his sourpuss attitude, I guess, on the field. I didn't like him kind of showing up Jalen on the field either, so I'm with you there. But I can certainly live with it if he's going to go out and put up 130 yards every week.
Now, if you're a Philly fan, pretty clear to say that one thing that could make you feel better about this loss quickly would be a win tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is it's baseball season.
And the good thing is it's baseball season.
Yeah.
And buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. So if you want to spend, some serious cash to get in the building tomorrow night, Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. We've got flash deals and last-minute tickets. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Images of seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Your team just made the NLCS. You want to cash in? Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Yeah, a lot of
the Phillies had some bad stretches in the regular season, and look where they are
of course. Now. They had a pretty terrible first 2.5 months of the season, and all you got to be doing is playing your best ball when it's playoff time, and hopefully the Eagles can do that. Certainly want to see Jalen string together a full 4-quarter game here.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I want to see that interception. See what the route concepts were like, where he was maybe supposed to go with the ball. It did certainly seem like he was staring down Dallas Goedert on that play.
Yeah.
I still don't love putting them in that position of, and I know like this is what it's all about. You've got a great quarterback and 3 great guys to throw to. If you need to get 9 yards to win the game, you should try to be able to get it. But I didn't love this sequence necessarily, and I don't think that I'm just saying that in retrospect because of how it turned out.
Maybe to your point about the running game, not being overly successful there, maybe that's one of those games where you just keep feeding Swift in the passing game and kind of treat those as the runs, because that did seem something like they were very effective with throughout the game.
And one of those, so many little small things in this game at the start of that drive, if DeAndre Swift doesn't go out of bounds, if he stays inbounds, all of a sudden there's one less play that you have to run before the 2-minute warning, and then you couldn't have potentially run the clock out.
Yeah, man, people are down bad in the chat.
It's been a long time since the Eagles have lost a regular season game with Jalen Hurts at quarterback.
So wait, this was how many consecutive road games had Jalen Hurts won prior to this?
I think it was 12. Is that right?
And it was only Brady and Montana that had ever had such long streaks.
Something like 23 straight regular season starts.
Yeah, so look, it sucks. There's no way to sugarcoat it, but I don't think its sky is falling. I understand some people have Brian Johnson concerns. They had him before this game. I think this game is just going to turn, more crosshairs his way. Jalen's fourth quarter. It's still weird talking this out that they lost. Like, it just feels like a game that you gave away. And I hate to use that as like an excuse or a crutch here, but it just doesn't seem like a game you should have lost.
I agree with that.
But you lost to the Jets.
The good news is it's a short trip home. You always hear about how if you lose and you got a long flight home, that's the worst. Good news is it's 90 minutes on the turnpike on the bus.
I think. And Martian Lynch agrees with you in the chat, says Swift running out of bounds there was an underrated mistake in the game. Yeah. Is this the worst loss regular season of the Sirianni-Hurts tenure? It might be.
That's a good question. I mean, there certainly wasn't a worse loss last year, just because
They steamrolled people.
that the Commanders game, but then the other ones were Minshew games. The year before, it's their first year. They got there
9-7.
maybe like the week when Sirianni comes out in the Dallas Suck shirt, and then they get totally blown out in Dallas.
That
That was a more embarrassing loss.
Yeah.
I just think it's I know people are taking this hard. Maybe it's the contrarian in me, but when it's like a game when so many things go wrong, that are not necessarily just being outplayed, they're like these sort of self-inflicted wounds. I find it a little bit hard to get totally up in arms.
Yeah, it's this one probably isn't going to digest well overnight either. I think everybody in the Delaware Valley and beyond is going to wake up tomorrow morning like.
Now, there were a couple plays in this game that were also, you could make the case that went in the Eagles' favor, and as there always are. Like, there was the A.J. Brown catch on the sideline that was reviewed. And that
I didn't think you could overturn it.
I didn't think you could overturn it either. And the truth is that nobody in the world knows what a catch is.
No, not at all.
But I thought maybe the ball was moving. Maybe they would overturn that. Even worse than that was the, what looked like a free play for Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson that gets them down into the red zone. And Alan Lazard throws the blindside block that ends up knocking Reed Blankenship out of the game. But a dumb play that I think some people thought was maybe not a penalty. I think by the rule it was. But that took points off the board for the Jets. They could have scored there. So, it as in every game, there are coin flip plays that go both ways.
Yeah, I'm real curious. And Zach's going to join us in a couple minutes here from MetLife Stadium. I'm curious what the vibe is in the locker room. I wonder how they wear this one, because if they're pissed, I think that's a good thing. I don't want to see like excuse making, and I don't want to see the injury thing come up. I want them to be angry.
Winning is all that matters. Then
the main thing is the main thing. Yeah. I wonder how many cliches are good. Today might be a record for Jalen cliches, but I'm very curious to hear from Zach how this locker room is.
It reminds me a little bit of I talked to Jason Kelsey about this in the locker room after week 1, the Patriots game, about the difference between like mistakes that are concerning and mistakes that are correctable, right?
So
and
what would you classify today as?
So I think today was a correctable day of mistakes, because in his mind, correctable mistakes are those self-inflicted wounds, like, errors of concentration or missing assignments or just not making the play that you could have made. Whereas the things that are more concerning are like you line up across from a guy and you just get beat. Like you don't have it. Now, I think you could say that Jack Driscoll, if he has to play, is a problem that he lined up and was just getting beat. Like that's tough.
Yeah.
I think you could probably say that about certain spots in the secondary at this point. But for the most part, especially on offense, I think these are problems that they should be able to work around.
Should, yeah. It's concerning.
Tough next week, though. A revenge game for Vic Fangio.
Oh, don't even get me started on that rat fink. Jonathan Gannon. What a... And Sean Desai's been pretty good,
He's been
I
very
think.
good, yeah.
But Vic Fangio is who they wanted, and he would have been here.
So they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, I mean, like... Oh, man. Don't even bring that up again. Between the Sod father and Jonathan Gannon, I'm still not over the Super Bowl.
Martian Lynch in the comments, I believe this is a Jalen Hurts quote that he's telling us.
Oh, lovely.
It is the opportunity to look in the mirror and respond.
Mm-hmm.
This is about how we respond. Guys are hungry and eager to fix the mistakes. These moments build a ton of character.
I couldn't get up there and lie that many cliches with a straight face, and he's half robotic, like with the cliches. It's out of control.
So Jeff McClain says that the initial x-rays on Lane Johnson's right ankle came back negative. An NFL source says belief is it could be a high ankle sprain, but an MRI tomorrow morning will tell more, and it is not the same ankle that he had the tightrope surgery on and has had trouble with over the years.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
I think it's probably better.
Probably.
Yeah.
But now both ankles.
But he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. Yeah, I mean,
which are not fun.
Yeah, I mean, don't you just like think about what's like the rest of Lane Johnson's life going to be like as he tries to walk around with just,
I think that, after watching that Kelsey documentary, I think that about all of those guys. Offensive line is gnarly, man. Those guys are...
Robert Saleh is such a clown, man.
What's he doing?
He says they ain't 12-0 no more. Because the Eagles had obviously never lost to the Jets in franchise history. Like, I don't know, puffing your chest out. I mean, if you don't got haters, you ain't popping, I guess, is what he's going to say to me about this. But, like, I don't know. I don't know that I would have been, like, puffing my chest out about this win.
No, it wasn't, like, pretty by any means. Here we go. Here's another Hurts quote for you. I'm going to go out there and be myself. It's taken me this far. We're going to rise from this journey together. We're grateful to have an opportunity next week to play to our standard. That's the goal.
There you go.
So he's grateful for the opportunity.
AJ Brown says the loss will light a fire under everybody's ass.
I hope so. I mean, again, like, yeah, it probably just comes down to those turnovers. But, like, how did they lose this game? Like, the defense was pretty stellar. To your point, like, how did you lose this game? Zach Wilson beat you? Huh?
Yeah, I mean.
It's just like that dude
bad.
Stinks.
He's so bad.
You lost
I think
Zach
he's the worst quarterback
Wilson?
in the league because he doesn't, as I said this to you guys, he doesn't know that he's that, like, he doesn't act like he's that bad.
He thinks he's a second overall pick.
It's not like you've got Brian Hoyer out there who understands his limitations. He's going out there thinking that he's Aaron Rodgers, playing like Zach Wilson, and it's just ugly to watch.
Oh, man. Yeah, this might be one of those ones that, like, at first I was just kind of, like, numb to the loss. The more and more I sit on it,
You get angry.
Yeah, I think the anger is going to build.
Philadelphia in you.
Yeah, I think the anger is going to build in me here.
You can make a case that this. I wonder how much this will, like, change the specific vibe in the ballpark tomorrow night.
I don't think it'll have any effect on that. Yeah, I think Red October will come into full effect. And
but maybe a little bit more anger behind.
There could be. If things go poorly early on,
right?
And Corbin Carroll gets like a big hit or something, maybe the rabble rousing starts again.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we wait for Zach, which I think we're going to have shortly, let's talk quickly about FOCO, because FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more.
I'm wearing some Phillies friendship bracelets from FOCO right now.
We saw you rock the overalls already.
Yeah.
FOCO has the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It's football and tailgating season. Overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, everything you need for a game. FOCO has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome pieces for our sets, which you can see behind us. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY for 10% off. And beyond FOCO, we've also got a great shirt for you. This Bryce Harper shirt that's on the PHLY locker. If you want to pull that,
I just ordered mine today. I was a little slow on the
draw.
Yeah, I was, but I ordered it today. I went with the baby blue over the white.
I think I'd go with the baby blue too.
I tend to get a lot of stains.
Andrew says he did the same.
Yeah, whether it's coffee, mustard.
Yeah, I feel like a white shirt for me at this point in my life is
bad news.
A bad investment.
Yeah, kids, pets, all of it. So I went with powder blue to protect myself a little bit there.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's a sweet shirt. Our guy Eric, who does the designs, knocked it out of the park with that one. So you can grab your shirts now and hopefully have them here while the Phillies, the real team in town, continues their run here, and we can forget about bad losses to the Jets tomorrow night. I think everybody will wake up tomorrow. Unlike me getting angrier, I think most people will wake up and listen to Dancing on My Own and go, all right, it's Red October. It was one loss. They can correct that. The main thing is the main thing still.
I really wish that that Saleh had instead gone with the Vitas Gerulaitis. Like, nobody, and I mean nobody, beats the Jets 13 times in a row. Like, let's have a little bit of
Robert Saleh. You don't have to be a meathead all the time.
I mean, they had that game. They had that point in the game where they're just like taking the delay of game penalty.
Yeah,
it felt like he was doing that like just to pout in front of the refs instead of really knowing what they were doing. They were twice that they sort of just decided not to attempt long field goals. Who am I to say? I mean, they won the game.
By the way, I still don't really understand why the refs were delaying the game on that AJ Brown. They were like literally standing there with Saleh waiting for him.
They didn't show it on the broadcast, and this goes to the point of the broadcast.
Was terrible today.
But I think that there was somebody who was injured on the field.
Oh, okay. That would have been a nice thing to
It
know.
would have been an important thing to show to the viewer who was trying to understand what was happening in the game.
Because I'm looking at you and I'm like,
like,
why are
what
the
is
refs
going
just like
on?
standing there
Right.
with him,
What
waiting
is
for him to
going on?
challenge?
Like, run a play. Yeah.
They
They didn't even mention it.
No. There was so many injuries today that, you know, maybe they couldn't even keep up with it because
That's true.
it
right,
seemed
yeah.
like there was like 16 different injuries today.
Right. Yeah, we had to get to, and you know what was interesting? We have Zach in a second. You know, they kept talking about the tush push, and you know that they had a whole conversation that they were waiting to break out, and then somewhere they're like very mad that they didn't get to have the pre-planned tush push conversation they wanted to have.
Somebody's coming after you in the chat there. It said, remember when you said Zach Wilson was the worst quarterback ever?
I stand by that.
See, I
stand by that.
I wouldn't pump the chest on Zach Wilson's performance.
Yeah,
today.
I would say Zach Wilson was completely accidental as to the result.
I think
of
the
this game
Jets
today.
defense won that game.
Absolutely nothing to do with it. All right, Zack Burman, the man who was there to watch it. He was in the locker room. I don't know what you've done the last half an hour, 40 minutes or so. Zach, tell us what you've learned.
Well, going in there, it was a different locker room than you typically see. There's usually a lot of celebrating, especially these past 2 years. Certainly not today. Quiet locker room, a lot of accountability, which might be a good thing. Actually, after the game, it wasn't really Sirianni who spoke. It was the veterans on the team who spoke. That was one thing that came out of it. I think the question that the fans most probably want to know was not what happened in the locker room, but in the interview room where Jalen Hurts spoke, and what happened on that interception. And he said, he said he did not do his job. He said he made the wrong read on that play. So he took accountability for that. Now, I don't think personally that they should have run the ball there. I know there might be a sentiment that they should have. Nick Sirianni was asked that, and Nick Sirianni said, no, they converted a third down earlier that drive. They liked the play in that situation. He said that's one that obviously Jalen wants back. He didn't think the other turnovers were on Jalen, but he said that's one obviously that Jalen wants back. Jalen said, everyone kind of said they have to go back and look at the film. I know I'm saying a lot here, and I'll get to your questions, but the big takeaway in the locker room, a quiet locker room, that the veterans spoke after the game, and then Jalen said he made the wrong read, and that he did not do his job on that play.
Was this a case of, because we have now seen this twice, the game on the line this season, Jalen Hurts with the ball in his hand has lost the ball. In New England, he fumbles the ball away and the defense bails him out. In this game, obviously, the ball is in his hands. This is what he's paid for. He throws that interception. I thought, as we've talked about, he was playing a great game really up until the last half of the fourth quarter. And then the final drive, they don't move the ball at all. What did he say about that? And was there, we like to ask about the accountability of a quarterback. I think that can be a little bit overstated, but his general demeanor about his own play after the loss.
Yeah, so you asked about that final drive. I specifically asked Jalen about that drive, and he said lack of execution. Basically, like, quote him on that. He said, put it down for that. Put me down for that. So that's the most detail he went into. Sirianni, when he was asked about that final drive, was trying to kind of go through the play-by-play. Thought the third down, which I think was the pass to Devontae across the middle, he said that was kind of their best play in that drive. But to get to Jalen's demeanor, Jalen was not as defensive as I don't want to say as I thought he would be. That wouldn't be appropriate way to frame it. I was curious what Jalen's demeanor would be too. If he would be dismissive, he took accountability. He said games like this can build character. He said that this is gonna test. This is all about how they respond. That was kind of his message after the game. So that was the overwhelming message from Jalen. But he was not dismissive, and he was not defensive. He was accountable, but he wasn't detailed.
Yeah, I think if I go the rest of my life without hearing another Jalen Hurts press conference, I'll be good. Zach, what is the latest on the injury front? What have you heard? We know X-rays on Lane are negative. What about the 8 or 9 other guys that appeared to get injured? Did you get any updates on anyone? What do you know?
Well, first off, you said that if you don't hear another Jalen press conference, you'll be okay. I hear 2 of them every week, and I look forward to those. So anytime I can get FaceTime with the quarterback, sign me up.
Yeah, it's the opposite for Zach. If he misses another Jalen Hurts press conference, he will be very upset.
Yeah, that's when I don't sleep at night, if I miss a Jalen press conference. Actually, our great producer, Andrew, he knows well that I'm always messaging him. Well, I say always. We've done 5 of these shows now, and I'm messaging him. Jalen's just speaking now. I'll be up right after Jalen. I don't like to miss Jalen. But to your question about the injuries, Lane's obviously the big one there. The reports are out that the X-rays were negative. We'll see specifically. Nick Sirianni didn't have information on it. The other guys, I mean, they finished the game with only one of their day one starters in the secondary. So Reed Blankenship, I'm curious about that one. Sirianni had not met with the doctors when he spoke to us. I did not see Blankenship in the locker room after the game. I saw Eli Ricks. He was walking. I did not speak to Eli though, so I can't tell you what his status was. But really, the players, Milton Williams returned to the game. It's really the secondary that took most of those injuries. Bradley Roby, Reed Blankenship, right? Eli Ricks, like I said. So we'll get more there. But Lane's injury is the most important injury. And that was crucial. Like if I take off my reporter hat and put on my my analyst hat for a second, I thought that changed the game offensively. And I thought
Jack Driscoll was terrible.
Yeah, Jalen felt the pressure. Especially, and I thought if you watch the interception over, I'm sure you guys have watched it many times now, that there wasn't really pressure in Jalen's face, but he kind of felt the pressure from his right side because that's where it was coming during that game. So the big story this week, in my opinion, is going to be Lane Johnson's status. And we all know what the numbers have been. But if Lane's not out there, do they go with Driscoll? Do they go with Tyler Steen? Do they go with Fred Johnson? Right. So this is going to be a fascinating week from a lineup perspective if Lane misses time.
And then I think it's the same at safety, Zach. And we've talked about this before, but it's also worth noting that in the secondary, we have now seen Josh Jobe play. We have seen Eli Ricks play. We have seen Mario Goodrich play. We have seen Mekhi Garner now play. We have not yet seen Keely Ringo see the field. He's the only guy in that secondary room who has not played on defense. But at safety, where Justin Evans was just placed on injured reserve, Reed Blankenship suffers a ribs injury for the second time this season. You would imagine there's a good chance that means he'll miss a game. With Terrell Edmonds and Mekhi Garner on the field at this point, how dire do you think the state of that position is, knowing that Sidney Brown was again inactive today?
Yeah, well, they need Sidney to get healthy, but it's certainly dire because it was already thin going into the season, right? Justin Evans on IR, like you said. If Blankenship misses time now, I mean, if you're down to Terrell Edmonds and Sidney Brown, who hasn't played in 3 weeks. That's a tough situation. Now, I've been saying that's the most likely spot for Howie to make a trade. It might be ambitious to make a trade this week and have that guy in the lineup on Sunday against Miami. But if you think to when they lost to Washington last year, that's when they responded right away and added the defensive tackles. So I'm curious to see, because you already know Justin Evans is down 4 weeks here, right? At least. So, if Blankenship misses time, you need some more certainty at that position. This is going to be a big week at safety, and especially when you see the way the Dolphins play and the speed that they have and the way they can flummox you in the middle of the field. This could be problematic. So, I'm very curious to see what they do.
Now, Zach, you probably don't know the answer to this question, but you've been around Howie Roseman a long time and you understand his values and beliefs. Let's just pretend it's a Justin Simmons or a Jeremy Chin. on a phone call this week that says, yeah, he's available. What would you guess is kind of the breaking point for Howie Roseman to address an in-season safety trade? Are we talking no higher than a third rounder? What do you kind of guesstimate would be his ballpark range he'd look to upgrade there?
I'd say fourth to a third. When you just look at historically the trades that he made, Jay Ajayi was a fourth. Jannard Avery was a fourth. Robert Quinn was a fourth. Golden Tate was a third. So that's typically the range that he's done for these trades. The players that he was willing to offer real valuable picks for midseason, Jalen Ramsey, maybe Minka Fitzpatrick. I would have to look back at my notes for that. But like those two guys who went for high picks, first round picks, right? That's where the Eagles might have been outbid. But I know they were aggressive, especially in like Ramsey's case, right? But when you're talking about Jeremy Chin, an expiring free agent, or I'm sorry, a player on an expiring contract, a pending free agent, I would think a fourth or a third. And that might be actually too high considering that he's been inconsistent this season, So I don't know, but I would think that the highest that he would go would be a fourth, and I think he's probably learned from the Golden Tate trade that it would really surprise me if it was a third. If it was a third, I think it would have to be someone who's here beyond this season.
Yeah.
Zach, I think it would not surprise you to learn that there's some consternation in the chat about the unweighted run-pass balance in this game. Jalen Hurts drops back to pass over 50 times, I believe. DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott, 14 carries, despite the fact the Eagles were leading for most of this game. What did you make of that as somebody who was watching it live?
Yeah, so I made of it early on, especially, wasn't particularly surprised because Sauce Gardner, when that injury news came out yesterday, and we talked about it pregame, of course, was that I thought that's where they thought they could take advantage of them. And Nick Sirianni said after the game that they never really got into like a 4-minute offense. The game was too close there. They kind of had to play it conventionally, but.
The end of the game on the interception was literally a 4-minute offense situation.
Just from watching it, I didn't think that they could get into any rhythm running the ball. I thought they were losing at the line of scrimmage there. And, whether it was the absence of the whole right side of their line of scrimmage, or those two guys, obviously, right tackle and right guard, or whether it was the runners couldn't get anything going, the backs couldn't get anything going. They couldn't move the ball on the ground, and I didn't have much of an issue with the run pass distribution. I had more of an issue with the production in the passing game. When you have AJ Brown, and AJ had a great game, but when you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and you're playing against a team that's missing their top two corners, you need to beat them up through the air. And the Eagles weren't beating them up through the air. And whether that's because Jalen was under duress, and he was under duress, particularly from the right side, or whether it was because the Jets defense was playing beyond themselves, I found that to be more unacceptable than the lack of running plays.
Yeah, Zach, I was curious, was Devontae caught up with or talked to in the scrums in the locker room? Because that was an uncharacteristically bad drop he had there. That could have, looking back on it now with hindsight being 2020, that could have been the game. There was a real chance he was that open to possibly score on it. It was a third down. It was kind of a momentum killer. He's not a guy that drops gimmies. Was there any reaction from him after the game?
I did not catch up with Devontae after the game, hoping to catch up with him this week. I was speaking to Kelsey, spoke to AJ, spoke to N'Kobe, spoke to Bradbury, obviously Jalen, Nick. But no, I did not speak to Devontae. And you were right, that was an uncharacteristic play for Devontae Smith, and a play that could have tilted the game.
Who else did you talk to in the locker room, Zach? Who can you give us color from as those veterans you talked about who were sort of taking the brunt of things?
Yeah, so in speaking to Kelsey, and I asked about the Lane Johnson thing, and he was he was pretty delicate on there. He said he has to go back and watch the film as like how it affected them. But he said
He learned
clearly
from
when you don't
Reed.
have, yeah, when you don't have Lane Johnson, when you don't have one of the best players in football, that affects you there. And history has kind of shown that. Um, the big message from multiple players in terms of the scene was them addressing each other after the game, and like that the leaders had to stand up and take this one, that this was below their standard. And AJ Brown, for instance, he was saying that he doesn't want to speak for Jalen, but he's not worried about Jalen. Jalen's kind of rebounded from worse before. Uh, as far as like some of the from people I talked to, the like mechanics of what occurred in the game, I asked Nakobe Dean about the rotation, because I was surprised. We were talking about a pregame, the three of us. I thought Nakobe would return and be the starter, and he was kind of taken aback when I asked about why there was rotation, and then he said, the guys played well before, in his time when he was out, and they earned playing time. So that was at least the line today. I'd be curious to see if it continues that way. I typically don't like these rotations. I don't mind situational things, but I don't like this series, that series, that this series, that series. So that's something to pay attention to. James Bradbury, when I asked him about the fact that there were five new guys in the second, or four other new guys in the secondary, he said they really didn't have time to adjust. They didn't have time to communicate. It was just you look who's there and you play their snap, right? Um, but they all thought that the defense handled themselves well, which they did, right?
They
I mean,
did.
I thought the defense, yeah, I thought the defense did enough to win this game, and especially the way they played on third down, especially the pressure. Bradbury said, that it all starts obviously with the way they played up front. That helped you there. I mean, to me, this game's on the offense overall, and Jalen's interception. And the shame in it is that Jalen was playing well, like you guys were saying. I mean, Jalen was carrying them, frankly, and that was just an inexcusable play. I mean, I'll give you a little press box color. I On that 3rd and 9 at the 2-minute warning, I turned to Elliott Shore Parks, who was sitting next to me, and I said, are they going to run or pass it here, right? Because I said pass it. I said end the game with the ball, right? And like the one thing that can't happen, literally the one thing that can't happen in that situation is throwing the
Yeah.
interception, and he threw the interception. So
Yeah.
that's just inexcusable.
Zach, last one from me. I guess I want to talk to analyst Zach, not reporter Zach here. I think the thing that, Brian Johnson's kind of up there on the blame game a little bit for me, not because so much of the run pass balance. It didn't seem like Jack Stahl or anybody was coming in to help Jack Driscoll. I think there needed to be, less empty sets, maybe a little 12 personnel, somebody chipping or helping out over there. I don't know if that falls on Stoutland more than it does Brian Johnson, or the two of them huddling on the sideline and kind of working that out. But I thought the game was lost there, not giving the right side of the line any help today.
That's a good point. And Sirianni said afterwards that they made adjustments with some chips there, and they had one fewer guy as a receiver when Lane went down. But you're right. I didn't see that as much. That's one of those things I have to go back and watch it there. But I didn't see it as much, and I did see them in empty a lot too. So no, that
A lot of empty. A lot of
I
empty.
what's that? Yeah. So I was surprised when Nick said that, but without the data in front of me, it's kind of not something
Sure.
I can push back on. Certainly, I'll have more. We speak to Nick tomorrow, and then the coordinators Tuesday, Nick again Wednesday. We'll have more to unpack then. But I do think that that's I said this to you guys. That's where the game shifted in my mind, was when Lane went down,
Absolutely.
and you do need to do some things there. That's a really good defensive front. That's the strength of that Jets team, and that's where they were going to hurt you. And I have Jack Stoll and Sua Opeta on your right side. I know you like the empty. I get it philosophically that when you're
Sure.
playing a team that's missing three corners, right, you want to get them to have five corners on the field, right? Because you're on corners, 4 through 9 at that point. But I don't like when you're missing your right tackle and Jalen's under duress, and then he feels it and he plays accordingly.
All right, Zach, anything else that you want to get off your chest before we let you get to writing and driving back home to Philadelphia?
Yeah, no, I'm curious too to see how they respond. There was mention from obviously a big. I mean, this is obvious, but the big lament after the game was the turnover. Sirianni said you can look up how many times a team's -4 and wins the game, and he pointed to when they had the 4 turnovers last time against Washington, right? And that's something that Jalen Hurts brought up, and so that might be something you hear this week. Now, I don't think they responded after that Washington game with like a huge convincing win, but they did win. This is Jalen Hurts was asked, I believe, by Tim McManus. I hope I'm crediting it correctly, about like the schedule that's coming up here. You're down a key player and you're going into like the heart of the schedule, and so I'm fascinated to see what happens there, because we all knew that the Eagles could build this, whether it's a 5-0 or potentially even 6-0 start to the season, but we knew what awaited them over these next 8 games. And I'm not saying this has a chance to go downhill fast, but there's a lot of games here where like the Eagles aren't going to be overwhelming favorites. So this is going to be a really fascinating few weeks. I'd say 2 months for the Eagles.
Yeah, Bo and I just kind of went gut check. Where do you have them in the next 6 games? And we both said 3-3. I mean, this is a real murderer's row of opponents coming up here, and it starts on Kelly Green Sunday next week.
Yeah, and to that point, if you're, so you had them 3-3, right? So then if you're 8-4, that's a decent position.
Yeah.
But with the reality is that a big part of the Eagles Super Bowl run last year was they only had to play 2 games, and it went through Philly. And I know San Francisco lost today in a game, in a loss that was probably worse than this one, frankly.
PJ Walker.
But you're not going to want to be in a yeah, you're not going to be in a situation where you might have to go to, like, you're paying attention to Dallas here. If you have to go on the road 3 times, and then and maybe one of those games is Dallas, one of those games is San Francisco, that's tough. So the division's going to be critical. That 1 seed is going to be critical. I mean, we have a lot of shows between now and then, but it'll be interesting to monitor.
That's right. The good news is that after like 6 weeks of, they're 5-0, but are they actually good? We're going to get to actually find out over the next 7 games if they are good. So, Zach, thank you so much. We look forward to reading your story on allphly.com later tonight. You and I will be back talking about this game again tomorrow at 3:30 here on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thank you for joining us. You look very handsome.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Good stuff from Zach.
Great
give
stuff.
him a little pick-me-up at the end there.
Yeah, he got a hot mic, I saw was one of the comments when he first joined.
Love that.
Yeah, so a little self-confidence booster for Zach there on the way out.
Yeah, why not?
Always a good thing.
Yeah, and you know what? Andrew, you're looking good too.
Yeah, it's great stash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
we've all talked about the Miles Teller thing. It's really, I mean, we should get like a Miles Teller Andrew t-shirt on the PHLY locker. That'll be good.
I know Zach likes him. I find Jalen. I find Jalen Hurts' press conferences to be absolute torture.
Well, I don't think
says so many
I don't
words
think that
without
Zach
saying.
Likes the like.
No, he knows he has to be there as a big journalist.
It's important for him to be there.
I get that.
Yeah.
But since I'm just a fan and I'm removed from writing in the locker room and being a journalist, I find them to be torture.
Yeah, certainly I don't. We don't learn a ton about Jalen Hurts. He doesn't let us in. But I think the flip side to that is that it can come across as like phony at first because it's just cliche after cliche.
But that's him.
Until you realize that like this is really the way that he approaches things.
I think I hate most press conferences, so it's not really like Jalen specific, but his ability to say nothing in so many words is frankly impressive.
And the one thing that I don't love is that he does, when he bristles at like a reasonable question that is like some kind of criticism in any way, that's a little bit, there's a defensiveness. But
I would love to be a fly on the wall.
It's rat poison, so
I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that quarterback room tomorrow when they're reviewing tape.
Tanner McKee's just chewing him out. What are you doing throwing this ball? What are you looking at?
I honestly don't know what he was looking at.
Yeah, kind of looking forward to seeing the full picture.
Lane Johnson, please be healthy. That's my takeaway.
I mean, truly, that is the most important thing from this game.
Absolutely. There's nothing close.
All right. Well, we will keep you abreast of all of those developments on the injury front over the course of the week on the PHLY Eagles podcast. We've got Monday at 3:30, Tuesday at 1:30, Thursday at 11:30, and Friday at 2:30 before getting you ready for next Sunday night's game, the Kelly Green game at Lincoln Financial Field.
Another primetime game.
And Dolphins.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. We've only got one 1:00 left.
I might as well just bring
get used to the darkness.
I might as well bring a sleeping bag and pillow in this week between Monday. Because for me, Monday night, Tuesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, my family's going to hate me. But that's all right. Got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do.
I got to keep the main thing.
Somebody's got to put bread on the table. What are we doing?
Damn right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you to everybody for watching.
Let's go, Phils. Baseball season.
There you go. Tomorrow night at the bank. Looking forward to it. I'm going to be there.
No, nice. I'm going on Tuesday. I can't wait.
Fantastic.
That place is intoxicating.
It's so good.
It's so good in the playoffs.
Yeah, it is really nice. All right. That'll do it for this episode. The Eagles falling to 5-1, the worst 5-1 team in the history of the NFL. As we all know, Jalen Hurts throwing the crushing interception, but we will see how they respond over the course of the next few games. So for Jamie and Andrew and Zach, we thank you for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.